Welcome to the Faith and Program Committee meeting of Tuesday, October 8th. Just to check, are we live and up this moment? Perfect, all righty. So once again, welcome ladies and gentlemen to the Faith and Program Committee meeting of October 8th. To start off, we're calling to order and taking attendance for the meeting. We have all trustees present, both online and in person, except for Trustee Daryl D'Souza and Student Trustee Bailey Klein, who have sent in their regrets for tonight's meeting. To start off, if you can join me in the opening prayer, which can be found in your package. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Gracious and generous God, creator of the earth, our common home, guide our steps as we journey together as pilgrims of hope this year. Teach us to act now for the good of all future generations and creatures. Fill us with gratitude for your abundant gifts of creation, and remind us to use these gifts wisely and to share them generously. Strengthen us to be good stewards of this earthly home and help us understand that care for creation is an act of discipleship. Inspire us to live out your call to protect people and the planet and to live our faith in relationship with all of God's creation. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Next, we move on to the land acknowledgement. With all that is happening around the world, we are especially conscious of the importance of reconciliation. And for us, in terms of supporting our Indigenous communities, reconciliation is about honoring the dish with one spoon wampum, one of our most foundational treaties, the sacrament of reconciliation, and the Catholic social teachings of subsidiary are important anchors for us as people of Jesus and are important links of our work and to the land. As always, we thank the Mississaugas of the Credit, our local treaty partners who have been stewards of this land for generations. Together, we commit to beauty and peace and to fight injustice vigorously, passionately, resolutely, and create a future with hope. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Next up, we move on to item A4, which is the approval of the agenda. Could I please get a mover for the approval of the agenda? Moved by Trustee Corbett. All in favor, if I can get everybody's hands up. Perfect, thank you. Any opposed? Seeing none, that has been passed. Next, we move on to A5, which is declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest this evening? Alrighty, seeing no declarations of interest, we move on to item A6, which is the approval of the minutes from the Faith and Program Committee meeting of May 14th, 2024, which also has the business arising from the minutes which are attached. Moved by Trustee Bruno Ianica. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none opposed, we have no awards and presentations this evening. We have no delegations this evening. We move on to item D, which is updates, information, reports from trustees for receipt, starting with D1 regular reports. The first off being D1A, the Ontario Catholic Trustees Association report. Trustee Luz Del Rosario.
Good evening, everyone. There is really no report from the OXTA meetings that we've had, but I just want to remind everybody, I sent out an email earlier today with regards to the OXTA, why it's important for us to be a member of OXTA. So it just gives you some background because I had a question before, so I thought I'll share it with all of you. So if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to let us know. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trustee Luz Del Rosario. Do we have any questions in regards to this matter? Seeing none, we move on to the next item, D1B, which is good news items. Do we have any good news items to bring forward this evening? Sure, Trustee Priya Corbett.
Through the chair, very pleased. Through the chair, very pleased that St. Aloysius Gonzaga Catholic Secondary School has their digital boulevard sign. It's working. We're very, very happy that that's done in time for the school's open house. So thank you very much to staff for all of your efforts. I know there was a lot of work behind the scenes to make that happen. So that's wonderful. And the gym at Our Lady of Mount Carmel Catholic Secondary School finally has air conditioning. It was operational for the month of September. Students and staff have been really pleased. I know they're not extraordinary good news items, but I wanted to express our gratitude on behalf of the school communities.
All righty, perfect. Thank you very much, Trustee Corbett. Any other good news items? Seeing none, we move on to the next item. We have no updates, item E, which is no updates, information reports from committees for receipt. Moving to item F, which is updates, information reports from administration for receipt. Starting with F1, the multi-use plan, research findings for the 2023-2024 surveys and proposed action steps for the 2024-2025 year. Executive Superintendent Vectorino.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, as trustee, heading up the committee with Daryl. May I speak to you for a second?
Sure, Trustee Mario Pascucci.
Thank you. Thank you, Max. I appreciate what you're doing. Unfortunately, I'm not there in person, and I just wanted to say that both Daryl and myself have gone through this document, and some of them through this document, take a look at it, et cetera, and had our input. So the opportunity was there. And thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It's over to you.
Thank you very much, Trustee Mario Pascucci. Once again, to you, Executive Superintendent Vectorino.
Good evening, everyone. Continuing through you, Mr. Chair. The 2023-2024 academic year, which was our last school year, saw the implementation, the beginning, if you will, of our 2023-2027 multi-year strategic plan by the Dufferin Peel Catholic District School Board. The Ministry of Education, in addition to requiring trustees to establish a multi-year strategic plan, has, as of last year, also added the requirement that this plan be evaluated very broadly by students, parents, and as many stakeholders as possible, semi-annually. So we now conduct, we now conduct surveys at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year, September, October, May, June, and try to get a pulse or a sense of how the broader community, which is served by the Dufferin Peel Catholic District School Board, about how they feel our plan is going. And this is in addition to many other research methodologies that we use to help us understand our plan and to plan next steps accordingly. In particular, as trustees are aware, we conduct large-scale surveys. They are often opinion-based, but we also layer these with achievement data and all of the other data that is available to us on our students and our communities. Last year, for the first time for Dufferin Peel, we also layered a qualitative component to our data through the form of focus groups. And that was to help us go a little bit deeper on areas of concern that were raised by our quantitative data to try to understand better what our community was telling us. Not only because we're interested in knowing, but more importantly, and this is where this report will conclude this evening, with regards to what are we going to do about this information and what are next steps planned. The next section of the report, I'll bring you through a high-level sense of what the responses to our various instruments, surveys, et cetera, were, and then we'll focus primarily on our next steps. So as mentioned, we have a number of surveys that impact, as well as the qualitative data collected for the first time last year, and I'll be going over a little more in a bit more detail what those instruments are. But first, towards the middle and all the way down to the bottom of page 11, a sense of what the overarching themes were in our evaluation of our plan to date. In each area of our plan, aligned to the 5 core values of believe, excel, respect, thrive, and trust, we have noted strengths pointed out by the various participants in our instruments, as well as areas that require improvement. Believe, the foundation of our faith, is a strength that was seen by our participants in all the instruments, was that there is an effective incorporation of Catholicity, which is obviously very important to us as a system within the school environment overall, with evident representation of active and faith-centered initiatives. And in secondary, in particular, school chaplains and social justice opportunities are well received. In terms of areas for improvement, there is a feeling that there needs to be enhanced integration of Scripture with stronger connections to local parishes. Also ensuring the integrity of our religious education curriculum, ensuring as well racial representation in religious education contexts. In terms of Excel, a strength was a number of strengths were noted, but in particular, in terms of a highlight, that the commitment to academic excellence in our board was acknowledged and repeatedly brought up by participants. There were specific areas, such as mathematics program implementation, that were critiqued, and that is, as we reviewed the data, not surprising, because math has been such an area of particular focus in this province, given scores historically being what they are. In terms of areas for improvement, in terms of our instructional programs, significant concerns were raised regarding overall mathematics and literacy support. A lot of participants highlighted the need for culturally responsive materials, understanding that if students don't see themselves represented, don't understand how they may integrate in the instructional day, in the curriculum programs, it's not going to be as easier for them to develop those skills of criticality that are important for future educational pathways. And there is the perception that in some of our learning environments, there's a one-size-fits-all educational approach, pointing to the need for more and more individualized support. That is something that as a system we've worked on significantly over time, but it continues to be an area where we require to put our attention. In the area of respect, strengths were seen in terms of positive perceptions of respect within all school environments, especially in terms of a faith-based connection. In terms of areas for improvement, there was I would say, a significant perception that there isn't always reciprocal respect between staff and students, accountability for racist and oppressive behaviors, and recognitions of the 2S LGBTQIA+ student community. Professional development in these areas is recommended, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. In terms of the area of Thrive, and I'm now middle of page 12, strength, a general agreement on the importance of well-being strategies. I think there's a very solid understanding now that student, staff, well-being are foundational to an effective learning environment. And we have some strong foundational processes in place, but we are still seeing, and this was evidenced in the feedback that we received, that bullying is still a pervasive issue. Particular concerns were brought up about cyberbullying, with a note about inadequate consequences. Cyberbullying, of course, is something that we as an educational community are having to deal with more and more, given the pervasive use of and existence of technology in our communities. So that is something that we definitely know that we have to continue to pay attention to. In terms of the area of trust, again, positive perceptions of our Catholic schools as warmer and safer environments than others. Trust issues, though, were also, despite this very positive sense of the environment being what it is, there's still, by some participants in our focus groups, a perception that there are trust issues related to transparency in the system, in terms of system-level operations, accountability for educators and administrators, who are also educators, and the need for more and more effective communications with parents and guardians. Some specific additional challenges were noted that don't easily fit into our 5 categories. So they are noted in our 5 vision statements, I'm sorry. So they are shown in the middle of page 12. There was concern raised by a number of participants in our surveys that the usability of our website could be enhanced. That we are not always able to demonstrate an intersectional approach between the various value areas of our plan, and that for some students, the high costs associated with the participation in school activities means that not everybody is able to participate equally in certain school programs. I mentioned a while back when I was focusing on the items presented on page 11 that pardon me, that there were a number of surveys that contributed to this data being gathered. And so for trustees this evening, I am highlighting the main areas or the main sources of data that we had. We had an elementary student voice survey conducted in April of 2024, targeting in particular our grade 7 and grade 8 students, specifically on the values statements highlighted in the multi-year strategic plan. We had the multi-year strategic plan evaluation survey that I referred to earlier, the one that is now administered every September, October, and then again, May and June. And this survey, which is confidential and anonymous, is one that we will be carrying out twice a year going forward. So this will be informing us, and we hope to continue to be able to look at the data and grow from it. We also had a number of surveys associated with the work that we do specifically in schools, and we refer those as our Catholic Board Improvement Learning Cycle surveys. So they respond specifically to the work that is happening in our classrooms. So we had the Ontario Catholic Student Graduate Expectation Survey, the Math and Literacy Attitudes and Practices surveys, the Catholic Digital Citizenship Survey, and the Middle Years Development Instrument. As I mentioned earlier, one significant change that was made to our data collection last year was that we conducted focus groups. So not only did we collect high-level data from our surveys, but we decided to probe a little bit further with a smaller number of participants who might be able to help us color the sometimes static survey data that we have. So we reached out to a number of our councils, our Black Community Advisory Council, our Indigenous Education Council, our Special Education Advisory Council, and our Central Committee for Catholic School Councils. Those are the committees that we always look to for input and support. And also we reached out to a cross-section of our students from a variety of groups. It is some of the feedback that we've received from this group that helped us understand better what might be meant by sort of large-scale totals that we have in our surveys. Finally, we know that Dufferin Peel is, not finally, next, we know that Dufferin Peel is an organization devoted to education, and that is our mainstay, but all of the work that we do on the instructional side of the organization, we are really one organization working jointly together for the same goals. Corporate services helps to underpin those goals by providing the facility to instructional employees to do the work that they do in support of students. Over the course of this school year, corporate services will also review its goals and enter into an understanding of how best to measure them, because educational surveys don't necessarily measure corporate capacity. And so we're looking for a way to help us understand better how we can go that next step. As always, we also look to our standardized provincial assessments. In our case here in Ontario, the Education Quality and Accountability Office assessments. And although these assessments show us that we continued to have significant strengths in the areas of literacy, outperforming the province, we have also noted this year that we continue to be challenged, as are other communities in the province, in terms of our grade 6 and grade 9 mathematics results, something important for us to continue to pay attention to. So the evaluation of the multi-year strategic plan showed that we are made up of a community where Catholic values are strong, well integrated, and respected, but that there are areas where our community feels that we can do better. And that, in terms of our priority of Excel, includes mathematics and literacy improvements that need to happen, particularly in a context-sensitive way. And what we mean by that is that all students, as much as possible, need to see themselves represented in the activities that they do at school, because we know that representation leads to inclusion, leads to engagement leads to achievement. And in particular, as noted earlier, there is a continued sense that bullying is pervasive in some aspects of our schools, and some people might argue some aspects of our society, and that in particular we need to turn our minds to the growing presence of cyberbullying in some of our environments. So that's the data. What are we going to do about it? Because we don't collect information just to share it. We want to make sure going forward that twice a year we come back, at least twice a year we come back to trustees and try to provide updates on our various action plans. So the research department, working alongside our central office superintendencies, program, special education, equity, mathematics, have looked at this data very strategically and have identified action plans in each of the areas. We're listing the action plans for you, and then we'll talk also about our ongoing monitoring of these plans throughout the year. In terms of literacy, and I am now looking at the bottom of page 14, we know that we need to focus intentionally on literacy. This comes out of the Science of Reading report that has told us province-wide, this is not specific to Dufferin Peel, that reading has to be taught intentionally and specifically. And so teachers are being asked to think very, very strategically about what to do about the screening tools that have been provided and what next steps are they going to put in place to help us bridge student gaps. So in particular, we're looking at tools like Heggerty, UFLI, and Bridging the Gap. And these are all tools that help us, once we've understood what the issue is, if you will, in a student's reading program, they provide us with some very strong science-driven next steps to try to remediate gaps in the early grades. In terms of mathematics, and this is based on priorities from the ministry, because as I mentioned earlier, mathematics is a concern provincially. We know that we have a very strong curriculum in Ontario. What we are not as confident of is with what fidelity, with what level of trust is this curriculum being implemented in our classrooms using proven effective strategies. And so we are working intentionally by distributing math lessons and weekly programs going out to educators directly, because that's where the difference happens between the educator and the student in grades 3 and 6. And targeted focuses on some area of mathematics in secondary as well, with a particular focus on the use of digital tools to support teacher professional development. We will come back to the trustees midpoint through the year to give you a sense of what success we are seeing early on in these two areas of priority. Understanding that change in large organizations like a school board take time. So we work cumulatively over time to make small adjustments and correct our course, if you will. In terms of equity and Indigenous education, and this is borne out by our data, we know that we have to continue to be very mindful about social justice strategies, addressing injustices in our programs and through our programs, and ensure that we promote racial literacy among all educators so that we can continue to work to dismantle the systemic barriers that get in the way of effective engagement and achievement. We want to provide direct support in particular for Indigenous students in grades 7 to 12, including early intervention, because we know that the earlier academic concerns are addressed, the more likely they are to be resolved, and as well provide social, emotional, and cultural supports to increase engagement, participation, and attendance. Again, even in this area, for February 2025, a midpoint review is planned to provide trustees with an understanding of how these actions have impacted on student achievement. In terms of mental health and well-being, collaboration is continuing to develop on focusing on a K-12 resource on cyberbullying, because this is the one area that we feel we have to pay particular attention to. Also including a mental health curriculum in grade 7, 8, and 10, supported by the ministry and reinforced here in Dufferin Peel through the use of our student mental health champions. In terms of special education, we know that it's important for us to understand the importance of individual education plans. Individual education plans are there because really every student's education should be tailored to their needs, but in particular for those students who have diverse learning needs, including special education needs, we know that those plans have to be highly tuned, if you will. But it's not enough for educators to understand them. It's just as important for us to help our families navigate those plans, understand them better, and be able to both support and have meaningful conversations with families, with school staff, about students' plans. And it will be through professional development provided to all special education staff in particular, but all staff more broadly, that we will work to achieve that plan. We also continue, and this is in the area of safe schools, to educate school administrators surrounding, in particular, the implementation of PPM 128 and its implications within schools. PPM 128, as I'm sure I don't have to remind you, but just in case, is a safe schools policy and a policy memorandum on safe schools that most recently has included a ban, if you will, or a caution around the use of cell phones in classrooms and schools, and it has implications for vaping. More broadly, though, we know that discipline in our schools is important so that schools can be places of engagement and achievement, and administrators are being provided with monthly opportunities on how to support student discipline and respond to it effectively. And educators, for the first time, actually, this year, Dufferin Peel is providing all of its educators with access to crisis intervention response programs to ensure that we know how to deal with emergent issues in the moment effectively and work intentionally to de-escalate them. So as mentioned, and we will be doing this going forward, we assess our plan twice yearly, not only through a specific survey that goes out to the broader community, but also through all of the other measures that I mentioned earlier. We try to collate this data and look at general areas which are strengths, more specific areas that require our attention. And this year, and we've not been so explicit in the past, but we feel that we really have to go in this direction. We're actually providing trustees with a sense of the specific actions that we will take this year to respond to the needs highlighted by the plan. And we hope that in this way, we will respond to student needs and improve, as I said earlier, engagement and achievement. That's the end of the report, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, it's Mario.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Veccarino. Trustee Mario Piscucci, just before you begin, do I have any other questions? People with questions I can add to the list? I have Trustee Mario Piscucci, Trustee Bruno Ionica. Anybody else? And Student Trustee Raheem White. Okay, we'll start with Trustee Mario Piscucci.
I was just going to ask if you wanted me to move it forward right now, but I'll wait until all the speakers are there, and then I will move it forward as a motion to move that report into to the board.
Mario Piscucci, because it is just a report for.
Oh, yes. Okay. I'm sorry. My fault. Sorry.
You can continue with your question.
No question.
No question? All righty, perfect. Next up, Trustee Bruno Ionica.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to be quite honest with you, I'm a little bit troubled with the responses, because if I look at each of the highlighted areas, believe, excel, and I won't read on. There's predominantly one, maybe two sentences on the strength. There's 5 or 6 on the areas for improvement. I'll be very honest with you, that troubles me. If my memory serves me correctly, we've had these responses almost the same in the previous reports, have we not? And so it would tell me that if I'll use a round number, 3 years ago, we, under respect, we had the strength, but we also had areas for improvement still there 3 years later, that what we've done hasn't worked. Would that be a safe comment?
So through the chair, it is, yes, what we do is important and it addresses the needs of our system, but the needs are ongoing and they're big, if you will, and they're not necessarily areas that school boards implementing specific programs can redress. Some of the areas of need, for example, cultural representation is a societal need. And so that's not, Deaf and Peel does its part in implementing programs, but can we fix, if you will, the problems in that area, not alone and not immediately?
And the challenge that I have is we have the report in front of us. How do I know in 6 months, 12 months, that what we have implemented, how's it measurable? How do I know that, yes, we went from, I'll use another round number, 25% to 60% on strength? You know, we went, you know, like when we have our EQAO, I can look at the report and say, this school did great this year, but didn't do so great 3 years later. Why? And we can narrow down there. I can't with this. To me, with all respect, it's a crapshoot of what we're gonna do. I wouldn't mind specifics on what the plan is, how we're gonna implement it, and how do we measure it. That's me. I mean, you know, as you were reading the strengths for each, it took all of 5-10 seconds. But when I read the areas for improvement, there's a lot of challenges that are in the areas of improvement. And I'm not disputing that some of these, in some cases, are beyond our control without other agencies assisting. You know, I mean, I could go to a couple of them right off the bat. But I could read this and I could say at the end, which I did, well, how am I going to improve this? I don't know. So if staff can lighten it for me, I'd appreciate it.
Through the chair, what perhaps might be helpful is at a future meeting if we brought forward some fact sheets that showed the proportional increase. So for example, as referenced, bullying continues to be pervasive, but to what extent have we been able to make inroads? Because I regrettably would say we're probably going to be dealing with bullying in some form or fashion every year. Maybe it presents itself in different ways. It's certainly presenting itself more in the cyberbullying kind of sphere for us. But to your point, Trustee Ainika, if we put together some fact sheets in terms of this is what bullying, you know, this was the extent to which students were reporting bullying in last year, and this is what it looks like this year, so that you can see some comparison, some quantitative comparisons. Through the chair, those are fair comments, and we'll bring forward a future report that has more quantifiable data associated with it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Trustee Bruno Inika. I just wanted to quickly check with Trustee Del Rosario or anybody online. Could you hear us?
I could not hear you, Mr. Chairman, until now.
You're not.
I can't hear you right now. I can hear you now, obviously, but I could not hear since when it went to him as a speaker to now.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. Next speaker we have on is student Raheem White. Student trustee Raheem White. If you could just make sure your mic is on and you can.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not sure if anybody's behind me in the lineup because I did have 3 questions. Thank you. So I'll go in order of the report. Firstly, thank you for the report. It was very well detailed. And I was happy to see how students were heavily involved in the MYSB process. So I'm looking at the section that did mention to us LGBTQIA plus students. And I was wondering if we've ever explored creating an action plan to combat to us LGBTQIA plus hate.
So through the chair, I would say that all I would say that when we support our students, we don't support on the basis of group. That's and I'll back away from that for just a moment. There are times where there have to be specific interventions for specific situations. But if we put that to one side, I think our hope with a focus on Catholic social teaching is that we are supporting all students based on who they are in the moment at all times. In terms of specifics, I would say that in terms of our secondary schools, almost all of them have, for example, student alliances that support those groups, and staff are brought out at a variety of levels to understand better the group that is mentioned by the student trustee, but other groups as well, working in particular through Superintendent Brett's department. We always go back to our foundational statement of getting to know our students, and getting to know them means knowing how to respond. So we do not have a specific action plan because we hope that our plans overall support all of our students.
Thank you very much. Through you, Mr. Chairman. My next question is in relation to the chart that you had outlining the action plans, specifically math. I'm looking at the wording. In the first line, it says, ensure curriculum fidelity by using proven instructional and assessment practices. And please do pardon me if this sounds cheeky, but if we have noticed that achievement as a whole in math is declining, how do you find out what's proven? What's a proven strategy?
I can begin responding to that, and then I'll turn it over to Superintendent Murphy and Assistant Superintendent Wendling. I think we as educators do know what some of the proven instructional strategies are. Our challenge, I don't think, is understanding the strategies. Our challenge has been ensuring that our professional development of teachers is effective to the point that those proven instructional strategies permeate all classrooms. So that's our biggest job. I think we have a very good sense, back to Trustee Yanika's point earlier. I think there's pretty strong research that suggests that, strategies X, Y, and Z work in bringing up math scores. Are those the strategies that are being used by all educators all of the time? No. That's our challenge, to get better at that. But I'll turn it over to Superintendent Murphy.
So through the chair, thank you for the question. Mathematics is a very important part of every student's life. It is essential in the world that they're entering. We know for a fact that there are high impact instructional practices that have been identified by research and are being promoted by the ministry. Our challenge is to have our teachers actualize those on a consistent basis. We do that through our PD. It requires time and confidence and repetition, just as learning any skill does for any student. Teachers are lifelong learners. They're lifelong students in terms of getting better at the craft so that they can more effectively implement the strategies that students need. Program department is always looking with the special education department on new resources that we can use that will support all learners and how we can best implement that. And I'll turn it over to Superintendent Wendling to add more information to that if he can.
Thank you. And through the chair, specifically, some of the things that are found in resources that are available on our SharePoint site for our teachers really focus on the high impact practices that include math conversations, problem solving tasks and experiences, direct instruction, learning goals, success criteria, descriptive feedback, teaching about problem solving, tools and representations, small group instruction, and flexible groupings. These things have been put forth by the ministry as important aspects for teaching, and we need to continue to ensure that teachers are using them and offering them as appropriate pedagogy to ensure that we are moving our students forward with student achievement.
Through the chair, I'd like to add one more thing to give you a concrete example. So as a student, you've gone through classes and you've experienced what we call drill and kill, where a teacher gives you something to do and you're doing 100 questions and a time limit. You know what I'm talking about, right? Research shows that gamifying such activities, making them fun and interesting for students, giving students a locus of control to create what those drill and kill exercises look like, actually teaches them the repetitive skills and the experience of internalizing those concepts. So through the high impact instructional practices, one of the things we're looking at is how do we gamify? How do we make learning fun in math? Because the minute you say math, you know how all students react to that, which is not what I want them to do, because math is a language and I'm an English teacher and language is what's really important. So math is really important. So we're looking at things that make it more enticing for students. We're looking at student voice. For the upcoming Professional Development Day, we have developed a gamification of mathematics for our elementary schools. We'll be looking at how we can translate that at a coding level for our high school students, because we all know that the tech jobs are where the future is. So that's a practical example of what we're trying to do to not only make learning more fun for our students, but also to make teaching more fun and challenging for our teachers. And it's based on proven scientific research, because when you look at what all the universities are doing in terms of best pedagogy, they are talking about gamifying. They're talking about involving students. They're talking about making learning fun, because you yourself know if you're enjoying what you're doing, it's not painful. You don't feel like you're studying. You actually feel like you're part of the learning. And we want to give that impression about every subject for every student. That's a lot of hard work. We are constantly trying to get better at it. And that is why sometimes it seems like we're saying the same things, because it's a lot of work to move people and make sure that we're in touch with what students want.
Thank you very much. Through you, Mr. Chairman, my third question is in relation to special education. As a student, my personal observation when it comes on to specialized supports like IEP and ESL programs, there's a stigma in schools. And just for instance, if you hear a teacher talking to a student about their IEP, it seems to be the biggest secret you've ever come across. So I guess my question is, through you, Mr. Chairman, how do we, as an organization, work to destigmatize supports such as that?
As a superintendent of special education, one of our primary goals is to make sure that children are integrated as much as possible into classrooms. And having an IEP, all children learn differently. I've said for decades, it's not a learning disability, it's learning differently. Every child could technically be put on an IEP because we all learn in different fashions. So the importance of having students be comfortable with their learning needs, advocating for themselves, just as you would advocate if you'd like your teacher to repeat a lesson or to repeat a concept. We teach those the children with different abilities to start advocating for themselves, to have them integrate into classrooms. And when this becomes commonplace that everyone is advocating, then they don't feel so different.
Alrighty, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Student Trustee Raheem White. Do we have any other questions? Seeing no questions, I'm just going to pass the chair to Trustee Bria Corbett, just because I have a question.
Go ahead, Chair Xavier.
Thank you very much. Through you, Madam Chair, correct me if I'm wrong, and if this is the wrong place to ask that, I will save my question for questions asked. But the reason that I do bring it up is because we are looking at our multi-year strategic plan. And when I reflect back to when I first became trustee, it was when Wi-Fi was booming and Wi-Fi, it was pushing Wi-Fi within schools. Now we look at the 21st century and we look at technology, the biggest talk everywhere is artificial intelligence. Now the question comes looking at our multi-year strategic plan and how everyone thinks of artificial intelligence as, oh, it's the best way to cheat, it's the best way to use to get information, but there's so much other potential positives when it comes to artificial intelligence. There's ways to figure out a child's learning and work on the way that you can change mechanisms of teaching a student just through artificial intelligence. What are we as a board doing moving forward when it comes to artificial intelligence? Through you, Madam Chair.
Through the chair, thank you so much for that question because it is of particular importance to me for our young people. Artificial intelligence is an amazing opportunity for education. That is where we are grounded in Dufferin Peel. Having said that, we are proceeding cautiously because always the safety of our children, our young people, is at stake in everything we do. And so there are aspects of artificial intelligence in terms of how students navigate that world that we have to make sure we fully understand that we're protecting our students with. My department has been first and foremost putting out artificial intelligence guidelines, promoting the fact that this is an opportunity and a tool that once we learn to understand and work on, we will be able to share with our students. Our students are way ahead of us on that anyway, and we're learning from them, which is really exciting because students should be leading the learning. We have a number of projects going on with our IT department under the leadership of CIO McIsaac. We're working with a number of companies on projects. One of the research projects we're looking at is how can we train AI to provide resources for teachers that could be specific to IEPs and to students' interests. So we're in a very early stage of this research. We're also reaching out to universities and colleges to see what kind of programs they're running and how we can be involved or aware of the research that they are participating in. And we have a number of connections with those communities where they're informing us of some of the gains that are being made in that area. So for Dufferin Peel, we have a very small but mighty team. And all of program department is very much interested in promoting AI at a rate that ensures the safety of our students. That is the big concern. The possibilities are exciting and we're exploring those. We are going to build our teachers' capacity. We are going to use our students as guideposts because, as I said, they often are the ones that lead the learning. And we're also looking at what other boards are doing. We're involved in a number of conferences, but this is an area that everyone in my department and Superintendent Papaloni's department is focused on because we see the potential for this for our students. I can give you more specifics as our research develops and as our relationships with companies become more grounded. But right now we're in an exploration phase of all of that. And I think that word on the street is that Dufferin Peel very much intends to be a leader in this area.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, thank you so much for answering that because that is big, especially with AI being something new that's out there. I think there's so much benefits to it that we can honestly push within our board. And I'm glad to hear that we're trying to push to be the leaders in society when it comes to AI. I'm hoping that once we do get past that exploring phase, that a report or presentation, I'm sure you guys will have that already down, but something comes forward to us, whether it's good news items or, sorry, issues and events, or whether it's an actual presentation. I look forward to that. So thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, staff, for working on that.
Thank you, Superintendent Murphy, and thank you, Chair Xavier. Do you have any other questions? Do you have a question, Trustee Anika?
Ironically, Madam Chair, I do based on this subject, and ironically, the comment and what the subject matter that Xavier raised was an email that I had sent to Director Mazzarato today, not just about our students, but educating our parents on AI. Because like everything else, parents get, and I think that the Superintendent Murphy raised it, or one of yourself or Superintendent Murphy, our kids are miles ahead of us. Imagine how far behind the parents are. So I would hope that, that as we progress, that the student is here and educating the student on AI, but also the parent is right here. Not at equal, because I think the kids need to learn it, but I think the parents need to understand it. Why, how, what, all of the questions, all of the concerns. So, I mean, when we talk about even cell phones, for how great they are, they create a significant amount of career changes for some kids because of the way that they're used. AI is no different, right? So it'll be interesting to see, and you know, the response that comes back from the director after she mulls through it among her 400 other thousand emails. But you know, those are I mean, it's a good point, Sean. I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I'm sure our colleagues agree as well. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Trustee Anika. Are there any other questions? Student Trustee Rahim White.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And to kind of add on to the points made by the two trustees, Gia and I, before the meeting started, we were actually going through the reports that student senators across our secondary schools submitted. And I'm going to read a portion of one, actually. One of the senators created a section in their report called Encouraging Tech Fluency. And they said, we can't neglect this change in reference to AI, and said, and learning to integrate it into our workflow builds a future of stronger students and individuals. And then asked, how can we reconfigure our perceptions of AI to be helpful rather than harmful? So this is certainly something that students are eyeing, and we are looking forward to hearing back on that. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you, Student Trustee Rahim White. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, back to you, Chair Xavier.
Thank you very much, Trustee Corbett. That concludes presentation F1. So thank you very much, Executive Superintendent Veccarino, for your presentation. Next, we move on to item F2, which is supporting Year 2 of the Mathematics Achievement Action Plan. Assistant Superintendent Wendling.
Good evening, and through the chair, in September 2023, all publicly funded school boards were required to create a math achievement plan. This requirement continues this year, and the Ministry of Education is supporting this plan by the following funding. Funding for a math lead, which would help with curriculum leadership, funding for digital tools to support curriculum fidelity, assessment, and student practice, and funding for math facilitators to support grade 3, 6, and 9 priority classrooms as identified by the Ministry of Education. These facilitators do a lot of work in co-teaching, co-planning, and modeling of lessons for teachers, as well as supporting students in closing the gaps of learning and skills. In Dufferin Peel Catholic District School Board, 35 elementary priority classes exist, or priority schools exist, as well as 3 secondary. These schools are supported directly by the math facilitators. As part of the framework to guide the math achievement plan are a number of priorities which come from the province. One being curriculum fidelity, math content knowledge for teachers, knowing the math learner, and measurable results, as expressed through KPIs and data and various pieces of data that are collected by school boards. This evening's report highlights Year 2 of the Math Achievement Action Plan and feedback from the multi-year strategic plan, as we bridge insights from both the multi-year strategic plan and feedback from the program department. This includes ensuring that curriculum fidelity through the use of proper instruction and assessment by the creation and distribution of specific math lessons and problems for grade 3 and 6 classes, which will elevate the connection to the curriculum, as well as knowing the learner by ensuring that mathematical processes and supports are there that are relevant and responsive by providing examples of the usage of digital tools and core resources to support learners' understanding and practice, as well as building math content knowledge for teachers by promoting attendance and the relevance of the ministry workshops that focus on content learning. As well, the program department is leveraging a number of resources in order to enhance students' learning experiences and responding to learners' strengths and needs. These would include core resources that begin in kindergarten with My Math Provocations, as well as in primary with Mathology, junior and intermediate, they're supported by Math Up Classroom, and Math Up Grade 9, which supports the D-Stream classes in the high schools. As well as we have additional resources, including High Impact Strategies Hub, which is found in our SharePoint site, which was mentioned earlier this evening, as well as we are creating a suggested scope and sequence as well as lessons for grade 3 and 6 classes that focus on the core resources. We also have a problem of the week for primary and junior classes, which support curriculum fidelity and student practice. On our SharePort site, we have a number of resources that focus in on coding and supporting math content knowledge, as well as having a number of digital tools such as Knowledge Hook, Braining Camp, Gizmos, as well as some coding resources as well. We also have to support social media where teachers can celebrate and classes can celebrate the various things they're doing in their math classrooms to spark interest and spark support. As well, on the board website, we have the Math Achievement Action Plan. This is so our community can know what our plan is, as well as finding supports for students with math practice as well. Another part of the resources are professional development opportunities. This includes our upcoming PD Day in elementary, where we'll be focused on a number of games to gamify numeracy skills. We also have sessions that will be offered with digital tools for classes, as well as formal support for grades 7s and 10s in literacy and financial literacy support, as well as the monthly ministry sessions and additional resources that are being pushed for the ministry for grade 3, 6, and 9. And again, once again, the funding has been renewed for AQ4 courses for subsidies. Last year, we had over 150 teachers involved with those subsidies, and we are hoping that will continue this year. So during the second year of the Math Achievement Plan, we will continue to accompany all of our learners to support students' achievement and to build capacity and a deeper understanding of the curriculum expectations and the high impact strategies, as well as supporting curriculum leadership throughout our schools. At this time, I will take any questions.
Thank you very much for that presentation, Assistant Superintendent Wendling, sorry. At this time, do we have any questions by trustees? Trustee Bruno Inica?
Mr. Chairman, question to staff. Are our math teachers real math teachers? Like, I know in some cases, in some cases, it's been difficult to find a math teacher with the qualification. And so and the teacher that goes in there does an admirable job, but are they math teachers? Because if you're a geography teacher teaching math, you're probably not as good as obviously you're not as good as the math teacher. So I've had concerns from some parents that their child's math teacher it's a challenge.
Through the chair, at secondary, they do have to have math qualifications to teach math. But, we also continue to push, even at secondary, if you have your math qualifications, as professionals, you continue to renew that. And what I mean by that is we're always ensuring that we're most current. You've heard the term high impact strategies. So just as we learn more and more about how we can support all students in achieving math and what kind of strategies and conditions in the classroom do that for them, we hope that even our qualified math teachers continue to develop their toolkit. At the elementary level, they do not have to have math qualifications, which is why there's been a big push from the ministry to fund additional qualification courses for teachers in math, and it's at no charge to the teachers. If they complete the course, they get reimbursed for it. We in Dufferin Peel have had a really good response to it. In fact, have been oversubscribed and have gone back to the ministry to ask if they would fund more teachers, and have been very pleased that they have. I know some of us, myself, Superintendent Murphy, and others took that math AQ course. So, after 35 years of teaching or 40 years of being in education a couple of years ago, I took the AQ course, and I can tell you the pedagogy is different than what I learned when I came out of Teachers College. So a lot of it is about really supporting our teachers to ensure that they're being guided by the most current information. It's not unlike literacy and the science. You've heard of the science of reading, that there is a science to teaching reading, just as there is a science to teaching math. And this is how, this is what we've learned through the years, through education. And that's our challenge right now, is to ensure that as many of our educators as possible, even though they may not have come out of Teachers College with math qualifications at the elementary level, to ensure that they themselves have confidence in teaching math and in using the pedagogy, the current pedagogy that we know is going to make a difference for all learners in the classroom.
Just to follow up if I can, Madam Chair. When you indicated that the and secondary is a different story, but in elementary, teachers that come out with whatever subjects as their core, math might not be one of them, but the ministry has said, hey, you take this course, we will you pay for it, we will reimburse you, or the board, somebody will reimburse you. So it's not going to cost you anything. And I understood that the teachers that did take it, the course was oversubscribed. So two questions. One, can staff identify what that number vacancy was and how much we filled of that vacancy? So if there was 100 spots, we filled 100, but there were 30 still on the waiting list, if that's possible.
Yeah, to clarify, let's say the Ministry of Education says we are going to fund 200 teachers this year to take the AQ course. We have more than 200 teachers express interest in Dufferin Peel for the AQ course. And then we go back to the ministry and ask if they'll give us some more.
So
it's not necessarily that they're not getting into an AQ course. It's the number of teachers that the ministry funds for us to put in the course.
So did we get 200 or was that just a number approximately?
I threw out a number.
Yeah, no, that's.
Yes, so last year we were given 150 and we overcame that. We had 200 people committing to the courses. In the end, some people did drop off, but we had 200 people committed to the courses. And this year we asked for more. We actually asked for 400 because we believe that we still have a big need out there and that teachers want to take the courses as well.
Have we gotten a response from the ministry yet? Or is that?
The ministry has given us funding for 400 AQ subsidies this year.
Okay, so my next question would be, first and foremost, that's fantastic. Because at the end of the day, we're going to end up with 550 teachers that are going to have.
Through the chair. And I also want to note that even though the teachers get reimbursed, it's a significant time commitment because they do this outside of their workday. And it's, and so, I think our teachers have to be commended for investing in their own professional development around math. I know it was certainly an eye-opener for me. It was a big time commitment, but I felt it was important to understand what that pedagogy looks like so that we, those of us in leadership positions, same is true with Superintendent Murphy, that we're able then to really walk that journey with our teachers. So for them to commit after doing, significant long days supporting our students to the number of hours that it takes to go through these courses, I just want to acknowledge that publicly about what the teachers in Dufferin Peel are doing to renew their own profession around math.
I'm flabbergasted that we subscribed to the first time. We asked for, 2.5 times more than what we originally got. And we feel that we're going to get another 400 at the end of the day. The next question, based on what Director Mazzarato indicated, is there any benefit other than to the kids, which I understand, but is there any financial benefit to the teacher in having that AQ course?
It could. It actually could. because you need a certain number of, there's different levels for pay grids, frankly, right? I don't think it's the motivation. I don't think it's the major motivation of our staff. I think they truly want to become better at being math teachers for our students. But it could, because you can also, you can take the AQ Part 1, you can take the Math AQ Part 2, and you can take the Math AQ Specialists. And, things like specialists could set you up if you wanted to be a consultant, or a couple of specialists and some other qualifications if you wanted to look in school leadership. So yes, AQ courses they could move you up in terms of your qualifications. But if you're already there, it's not going to do anything for you in that regard. If you're already at the highest grid, or you already have certain qualifications, it's not going to do anything for you in that regard.
Yeah, the financial aspect is forget the hard work and everything else. If there's a financial positiveness to it, it's a bonus. I agree with you. I don't think that they do it because it's going to be an extra $500. I think a lot of them do it because they want to increase their education and, as you indicated, be better. And again, I mean, I think that's a great story.
I agree, because it's a investment in their own capacity as a teacher, and it's a large time commitment that they're doing when they're going home at night for, a term for about, 3 months.
I know that you indicated that you wanted to, do we know who those teachers are?
We would have that information, sure.
I mean, based on what you indicated, would an email or a letter to the employees saying, we understand your commitment that you've given up. Sometimes you need a pat on the back.
Mhm.
Like, sake of an argument, I spent all day teaching. I went home, dealt with my kids, took them to hockey, took them to dance, took them wherever, and then put them to bed. And then I went downstairs and fired off on my computer, worked on the course. That's a commitment. You're absolutely right. And sometimes getting a pat on the back and saying, we understand the hard work that you did and whatever, I won't call it suffering, but the time commitment, it's very much appreciated by, our students, but also by the board.
Through the chair, I would be happy to write a letter, maybe expressing the sentiments of not only myself personally, but also the Board of Trustees as well. But I would propose writing that letter, not just focusing on, I can use the Math AQ as an example, but I would say that there are other teachers that are taking other AQ courses or doing other things to invest in their own professional development. I know the Program and Learning Services Department and the Special Education Department have put together a plethora of all kinds of modules that they can access. And the only way they can access, for the most part, is outside of the school day, because, they're in front of students all day long. Their planning time is probably taken up with assessment and all of that. And so we know that teachers are accessing these opportunities to build their own capacity around investing in themselves. And so I would be more than pleased to write just a general letter to our educators to express our gratitude for everything that they're doing to access all the professional development opportunities that are available to them, and acknowledge that it's not lost on us that this is happening outside of, the very busy day that they have designing learning experiences for our students.
And I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Trustee Anika. Do we have any other questions in regards to item F2? Seeing no questions, thank you very much, Assistant Superintendent Wendling, for that presentation. Next, we're moving on to item F3, which is celebrating the Jubilee Year. Superintendent Murphy.
Through the chair, The program's report on celebrating the Jubilee year is found on page 21 of your agenda. It is with great joy that Dufferin Peel Catholic District School Board will celebrate the 2025 Jubilee year declared by His Holiness Pope Francis with the theme of Pilgrims of Hope. Every quarter of a century, the Church beckons its faithful to a year of Jubilee to strengthen our faith, our love for one another, and our hope in God's promise of salvation. 2025's year of Jubilee calls us to forgiveness, hope, joy, and justice, and a call to be pilgrims to each other on this journey. A pilgrimage is a spiritual journey, an apt symbol for our work as Catholic educators. The theme of Pilgrims of Hope, identified by Pope Francis, is also the theme from the Ontario Catholic School Trustee Association for Catholic Education Week 2025, and also for the conference When Faith Meets Pedagogy that is offered by our Catholic Curriculum Cooperative. And it is also the theme driving our Adult Faith Formation speaker series. Pope Francis instructs us that hope is cultivated through our prayers of unity and our actions in solidarity as we join in communion with the Church and each other. Hope is found in the actions of those who follow Jesus' example in Scripture. This Jubilee year is grounded in the opportunity to be renewed in hope, and the board will celebrate a Jubilee Youth Day, inviting our youth to be pilgrims of hope. Pope Francis instructs us to celebrate hope in a symphony of prayer. Prayer is the first strength of hope. The Our Father will be given special focus throughout this Jubilee year of prayer to ground our youth in understanding their voice in this symphony of prayer. In Christianity, the Jubilee year is symbolized and connected to holy doors in papal basilicas in Rome. In our tradition, these doors represent the passage to salvation, the passage each of us goes through as we strive to go from sin to grace. These doors are generally locked. They're bricked up between Jubilee years and then open for special periods such as the upcoming Jubilee year. And in going through these doors, pilgrims are given unique blessings called indulgences when they are opened and they walk through these doors. The most famous door, of course, is the Holy Door of St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, and that is the door that the Pope himself will open on Christmas Eve and walk through to start off the Jubilee year. Here in Dufferin Peel, our students have created holy doors for the conference When Faith Meets Pedagogy, which is the largest Catholic conference in our province. These student-created doors will recreate the 16 panels of the Holy Door of St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, and after the conference, they will be on display at the board and potentially schools. The Oxta Jubilee Pilgrims of Hope Monthly Bulletin elevates ways to celebrate the Jubilee's theme with our students. I'm very proud to say that many of our Dufferin Peel staff in my department are involved in writing that. September focused on the theme of Pilgrims of Hope and the Symphony of Prayer, which is a beautiful concept. For this month, the importance of the Jubilee year and the Holy Door of St. Peter's Basilica is explored to make that connection between moving from sin to grace and always towards the arms of our Lord. These bulletins are shared across the system and through program SharePoint resources. The 2025 Jubilee year, with its theme of hope and liberation, calls us to focus on our faith to transform and heal our world and empower our students to know that they will be the leaders doing that. I'd like to conclude this report with Pope Francis's direction at the beginning of the report. He says, "We must fan the flame of hope that has been given to us and help everyone to gain new strength and certainty by looking to the future with an open spirit, a trusting heart, and far-sighted vision." I'm happy to take any reports on the work that we're doing on celebrating this Jubilee year.
Thank you very much for that presentation, Superintendent Murphy. Do we have any questions in regards to this presentation? Seeing no questions? Yes, Trustee Bree Corbett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and through you. Just a question, is there any more information on the Jubilee Youth Day that we plan to celebrate?
We have not finalized any of the plans right now. As soon as we do, we will, of course, present that to the trustees first. Right now, we're focusing on the involvement with When Faith Meets Pedagogy, our writing of the newsletters, and getting out an understanding of what Jubilee year means and the theology behind that. And once we are grounded in that, we will have significant work to do on making that an event that I hope will be profound spiritually for our students and an opportunity for them to be witnesses to Christ in our community.
Thank you, Superintendent Murphy. It sounds amazing. And just one other request, hopefully our student trustees will also be included in that.
Their leadership is integral in all of the work that we do with our students. We take what they say and think very seriously, and we have great inspiration from their leadership as they work together in this role.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you, Trustee Bria Corbett. Do we have any other questions in reference to this presentation? Seeing none, once again, thank you very much, Superintendent Murphy, for that presentation. Next, we move on. We have no items for item G, which is trustees, committees, administration reports requiring action. We have no items for item H, which is additional business for this evening. No notices of motion. We move on to item I, which is questions asked by trustees. Do we have any questions? I'll create a speakers list, starting with Trustee Corbett. Any other trustees? And Student Trustee Raheem White. Anybody else? Seeing none, Trustee Corbett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and through you, just one question regarding the online booking platform for parent-teacher interviews. I know some of our schools are using that or will be using it for parents to schedule their parent-teacher interviews this year. And back in, I think it was January 2023, I raised the question then about how we can improve feasibility and usage of this online booking platform across all of our schools. My understanding is that up until now, it's been optional for schools to use. Some do, some choose not to. I believe there's also a small fee associated with it for the schools to use. But I think this booking platform is something we could ensure using across all of our schools. I think it's important that all of our parents have this opportunity, similar to the other platforms we currently use with Zoom and School Messenger. So is there or can there be direction from the board for all of our schools to use this online booking platform for parents so they can schedule those interviews with their child's teacher?
Through the chair, yes, we'll work through the Family of Schools supervisory officers to ensure that all schools are using that online booking feature.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trustee Corbett. Next, I have Student Trustee Raheem White.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and through you, one question as well. It's in relation to the AI discussion that we had earlier. Is there any specialized staff working on AI exploration?
Yes, in the program, through the chair, yes. In the program department, we have a very strong technologically enabled pedagogical section, which means that I have a group of teachers who have great passion and training in technology, computer science, and AI.
Thank you very much, and I'll be sure to relay this information with our senators. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Student Trustee Raheem White. Any more questions? Seeing no questions, I just have a very quick question, if I can pass the chair to Trustee Corbett.
Go ahead, Chair Xavier.
Thank you very much. Through you to staff, I understand that we've always been struggling to find vice principals. Just wanted a quick update. What's our current situation with how many vice principals we have in the pool, and when are we doing the process to get more? Through you, Madam Chair.
Through the chair, we have nobody in the pool in elementary. But the good news is last week we had our information session. That's what we do at this time of year. And we had well over 100 individuals come forward expressing interest. That doesn't necessarily mean that all of them are going to go through, but they were very interested in the information session. So I think we're feeling positive about the interest in leadership. And I think we've had quite a wave over the last number of years of retirees, and I think that might be ebbing a little bit.
Thank you very much. And through you, Madam Chair, sorry, did you say that was principals or vice principals? And for elementary or secondary?
Through the chair for both.
Our pool is completely empty for both.
Yeah, in elementary, it's completely empty for both. For secondary, I'm going to ask Superintendent Wayne Brunton just to confirm. My recollection is that there may be a few in the secondary principal,
Yeah, through the chair, elementary vice principal and principal pool is empty. Secondary vice principal pool is empty. Secondary principal pool, we have 2 candidates.
Perfect. Okay. And then, sorry, through you, Madam Chair, but we had that information session where we had people interested, and when do they put their name forward?
Through the chair, they're going to go through the CLQP process this fall. And typically, I think by the new year, we've completed it. But in the meantime, we do have strong retirees that are helping us out.
Perfect. Through you, Madam Chair, so in the new year, I guess we'll revisit this whole situation and we'll get a better idea of what the situation is within the board.
In the new year, we hope that we have some more people in the pool.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Director. Thank you, Superintendent Renton, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Chair Xavier. Any other questions? Seeing none, back to you.
Thank you very much. We have no declared interest items this evening. We have no in-camera session. And we have no report from our in-camera session. Our next meeting is on January 14th, 2025. Could I get a mover for adjournment? Moved by Trustee Thomas. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, thank you very much and hope you all have